You're the first person I thought of when James Harden
Yep.
hamstring injury means that he will miss 10 days. 10 days of basketball, less than a handful of games, but still some games that he will miss. And I thought to myself, I was like, okay, does this mean that his MVP candidacy, I won't say it's on life support, but it does take a little hit for a guy that, the detractors have come up with reasons to say why they don't want to vote for him. How do
Mhm.
you feel about his absence here through the lens of your own James Harden MVP ticket?
Yeah, like if it's not to keep it going, right? If it's not on life support, it's definitely like a code, and they're calling all the nurses in because the machines are beeping and they're trying to figure out what's going on with them at this point. So, like, it's completely reasonable at this point, to think that it's all but done because there's a couple of things, right? As much as I love James Harden, Gill, and as much as I've been pushing for this, I realized that there was a gap. However, you wanted to argue between him and Jokic, there was that gap that he still had to make up throughout the rest of the season. An injury just can't happen if that's going to be, if you're catching up, you can't miss time. The other thing that doesn't help at all is Joel Embiid's return. Yesterday he comes back, he scores over 30. He has, I think, was it 20,322 free throw attempts against the Boston Celtics yesterday, just completely
Yeah.
annihilates them.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that doesn't really help. It's that the pack is getting healthier, that a guy like Embiid is back. So I would actually say, pretty close to live support. Relatively ready to write, I think, the first concession speech we've seen in a really long time. So we'll see if that's going to happen. But it's definitely worrisome at this point.
JVT, that was a very honest assessment of your James Harden ticket. I didn't know which way you're going to go on that, but that's you're accepting. Acceptance is one of these stages, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, and like I even wrote at the All-Star break, like at that point, I thought Joel Embiid was, the MVP. I think, and this, when you're betting things like that, you have to take this very, well, I guess logically is the right term, but you realize that I'm betting at this price because there is a high probability that he's not going to win it. I just think there's a larger probability than the
Right.
market is telling me. And that's what I thought. And the other probability it looks like is the other reality is happening now.
So if someone lands today on the MVP market, just to wrap this up, and they see Jokic is at minus 130, he's the favorite. Embiid, who you just mentioned, is 4-1. These courtesy of BetMGM. Everybody else is double digits, including my dude Luca, for whom I have a ticket. Luca's at 11-1. Who would you recommend, if anyone, for somebody to bet here? By the way, Donovan Mitchell, which we got a tweet about earlier, 150-1. I mean, there's guys who have really big numbers. Would you recommend anybody right now?
I mean, the two that come to mind would be Luka Doncic, right? One, because the way that they've been playing, I think it's now 5 straight games that they have won
Mm-hmm.
since over the last 2 months. They were behind only the Utah Jazz in a lot of good categories, offensive efficiency, net rating, things like that. And so I think that would probably be the value play. Joel Embiid, I think a lot of people would go to that, Gill, but my problem is twofold. One, it's the number. I'd rather be in the range of like 7-8-1 if I'm betting at Embiid at this point. And the other is, look, we've already seen him sit out one second leg of a back-to-back. They got 5 more left on their schedule. How many of those is he going to voluntarily or willingly miss, or how often is the team willingly going to sit him out with this knee injury? That we've seen so many teams be overly cautious with the compact nature of the schedule, handicapping on a day-to-day basis. It's so funny. You always check the injury reports, but lately it's just been so much about the injury reports because these teams are trying to rest guys, and I think Embiid is probably going to sit out quite a bit over this home stretch. So I think it'd be Luka and nobody else at this point.